Hey, so Phrecia's back. Um, I've been kind of cooking this build that I really want to just start and just see how far I can take it in this league. It's a very strange build that was inspired by like a single Reddit thread. So I'll link it in the description, but it just kind of it is very strange. I don't really have any gameplay to show of it, so I really didn't want to make one of those 30-minute long just going through path of building videos. I thought it'd be really boring. So I put together this shitty little PowerPoint presentation just to show off what I'm thinking of what I've been cooking. So, first of all, Trial of the Ancestors is back. I really didn't get to play this league. I didn't play at the time, you know. I think I started really getting into this game again around Settlers League. And every single time I see anything, any event that they're doing in between leagues, I always see 400,000 comments on like Reddit and like on the Path of Exile website, like, oh, dude, is Tota coming back? Is Tota going to come back? Is it coming back? It's back. It's here. And they even got us the crazy, forbidden tattoos. However, I do gotta put a prayer out there before any of this starts. I really hope that GGG made it so that we can actually get and plan around these tattoos because and to be fair, they do have a really bad track record. Because think about it, right? So, this league, Mirage League, we had the belts, and they showed off the belts, I believe, with that, resistance acceleration belt being like, "Guys, look at this crazy belt that you could, like, sacrifice, like, your flask for," and then that belt dropped, like, 10 times over the whole league or something, and it's worth, like, 100 plus mirrors, and, like, they're the same thing in PoE, 2 right now with Alder's Legacy. They were like, "Guys, we made this thing where you could take, like, one line from a unique and then put it on, like, any other piece of armor," which is, like, really sick, really cool idea for build crafting, except you can't use it because each one is, like, 300 divines, they're way too rare. So I'm hoping that GGG actually makes these accessible so that, like, we as the community can actually, like, have fun playing and planning around them, but if they don't, this build does not actually need them to function, so I think it'll be alright. Alright, moving on. What am I playing? Well, I mean, you saw the thumbnail in the first slide. I'm playing a Zoomancer, which means that by default, I am playing zombies. I know that zombies are really bad. I don't know why I'm playing them. I mean, maybe I'm just trying to relive the nostalgia. I remember I didn't really get into the game, but like a really long time ago, I do remember a second where Baron Zombies was like the meta, and it was like killing Shaper in 1 second. And maybe I'm trying to relive whatever that was. But I mean, the real reason is that one, I just kind of like them, Like I listed all these things over here about why they're bad because they have like the horrible AI, they move really slow, they don't do any damage, they're just not even tanky. But I mean, they are the only permanent minion that you can have that lets you run support specters and golems in an animate guardian and like kind of get all those buffs. Skeletons does not count. I mean, that Alberon's Warpath exists, but like, come on, man. There's no even way to make them survive. Like, they actually kind of have cool AI, and I think their damage is all right, but I don't think they could be tanky enough to really be a good permanent minion. So I really want to just like stack a bunch of buffs and use a bunch of mechanics from all the stuff that's available, and zombies is the only option. So I'm playing zombies. Now, those of you with a brain may be thinking, all right, dude, you're playing zombies. Why are you not playing the zombie ascendancy? Are you stupid? No, actually, this time, because I have been baited by this ascendancy twice now, and I'm not falling for it again. They changed the numbers. They add a bunch of mechanics that make it like, oh, dude, this time it's playable. This time you can actually play zombies. I really just don't believe in it. I mean, for the past two Phrecia leagues, I played the classic, avoiding the like terrible node of graveyard shift over here. And I've been playing going down, getting rotting might, going up, getting feeding frenzy, getting minions that are aggressive, getting all the strength stacking with Baron, maybe, going and getting the extra life as energy shield and like this was pretty bad. I'm sure now, like, oh look, we could actually have this freed up and we can tattoo over this with like something that doesn't suck, and then we can go over here. And like that's really awesome. We get the +5 to all level of all ray zombie gems, and the increased size is funny. But then you just gotta think about it. Like, what is this ascendancy actually doing for you? It makes your zombies quote unquote good, even though like you're spending all 8 of your ascendancy points just like attempting to make zombies a playable minion, because like you gotta omega buff all their stats to make them good, and then you gotta give them aggressive because their AI sucks. Then you gotta like give them more health and stuff. And I don't know, I just don't think it's really worth it. And I think that my plan has some more interesting things going on. But I'm sure that tattooing over this node will make playing zombies on Puppeteer a little bit more bearable. I mean, because you can not have raised zombies count as corpses destroying you. But honestly, I am interested in seeing if like this with Mantra Ghouls actually makes, it's actually all right because you'll have all the double damage on your zombies and stuff. And I mean, maybe raised zombies count as corpses really isn't that bad if you just avoid using an offering. Like, yeah, I know you can have like one rare break your whole map, but maybe it actually isn't like that horrible. I have no idea. But anyways, I'm not playing Puppeteer. I've been baited too many times, and I just don't even think that getting the Ascendancy tattoos that we don't even know how much they could possibly cost, like maybe they're actually going to be a mirror each. Like we don't even know if it's going to be feasible. Like I'm not falling for it. So okay, I made my case for why I'm not going to play Puppeteer, but why would I play Wildspeaker? You know, good question. It's because I'm obsessed with this helmet. Oh my god, I love the Devourer of Mine's helmet. It is such a cool helmet. I'm one of like 18 people on PoE Ninja. I have two different characters that was using it during Mirage League. I think it's a really fun and interesting helmet that does like a lot of cool things, especially when paired with the new resonating belt that's really, really common. Anyways, um, nothing on here matters. Like +1 level of minion skill gems, okay. Really, it just matters that you have minions have the same maximum number of endurance, frenzy, and power charges as you, and that they have the same amount of power charges, or sorry, all charges as you, which just means that you can stack a ton of charges, and they'll get all the bonuses. Now, the big problem with that is that you're playing a summoner. Like summoners usually aren't getting a ton of charges. They're not like hitting, you can get like the monkeys to generate charges, but it's not super efficient. It doesn't have like good uptime. So what are you doing? Well, Wildspeaker has the Fearful Symmetry notable that says you gain up to your maximum number of frenzy and power charges each time you gain cat stealth. And it gives you cat stealth for free before that. And it gives you +1 to both your frenzy and your power charges. Okay, awesome. So then you could take that and you can get anything with the line your maximum endurance charges is equal to your maximum frenzy charges, which is, just on replica, badge of the brotherhood, or masterful form, which is like super, super out there, Obviously, I know a lot of people are looking for this notable passive ascendancy skill, and I know that basically every single duelist notable is kind of really insane. So I can only assume that these specific tattoos, like the forbidden tattoo of the duelist or whatever, are going to be really expensive. So I don't know if masterful form will be possible to get within, when the league is, but if I can get it, it's really huge. Um, but yeah, this basically just gives us perma uptime on frenzy and power charges, and also lets us scale our endurance charges and our frenzy charges at the same time for us and our minions. This is because, and just to elaborate, when you gain cat stealth is on a 10-second timer, and each charge lasts for 10 seconds, because you get like 4 seconds cat stealth, 6 seconds cat's agility or something. I don't know. That one doesn't really matter. Cat stealth is the only important one. So yeah, it'll just give us permanent uptime, and it completely solves the uptime, gives us extra charges, and lets us scale everything at the same time. It's really sick. Okay, so what's the plan with the ascendancy? You got to use all your ascendancy points. So when I'm thinking early game. I'm just gonna, start just book it straight to these two to get the crazy avians, might avians flight. Obviously, I'd like to level with like frost bearers or something, but I think that this will, obviously no one's gonna be at maps day one, so or sorry, I guess like hour one, second one, perhaps. So I'm probably going to be playing Absolution and then maybe changing to like a Soul Rest later because I mean, I just feel like that one's like really, really goaded for like early mapping. And then later when I'm able to respec, I'm going to go, hold on, and I'm going to, take this, take this. Obviously, it's the whole crux of the build, you know. Um, I'm probably at some point I'd like to tattoo over this node and just build aspect of the cat because like the levels of the aspect of the cat don't actually matter that much. It's really just the fact that we have it. So I'd want to tattoo over that with that like a duelist node, or if they're cheaper, maybe just like any of the witch nodes. I know like half of them are gonna be useful and minion related, so that could be an option too. Um, and then I want to get Primal Instinct because 100% chance to suppress is awesome, and it lets you even run acrobatics and just get 50% spell dodge at the gate with like no other investment, which is really sick because, the -10 to amount of spell damage prevented, plus the recent, or I guess not very recent, but a little bit recent nerf to suppression and how much that actually prevents. It's giving you 30% less damage taken from every spell, which is pretty good. But I think spell dodge is gonna be kind of stronger. Um, and then the other 2 points that we use don't really matter. Like Tailwind is like kind of cool. It's like not really a super huge buff, but it's cool. Or, we can go here, just get a bunch of um dexterity and just get like a little bit more increased damage. But eventually you want to go because we're going to be using a Screams of Desiccated belt. So we're going to want to go into the Nameless Ascendancy and get the extra ring slot, which will be important for charge stacking, which I'll mention on the coming slide, I believe. So here's the build's offenses, or perhaps a better way to put it is just where are these charges coming from? So you get a 3 that are base. You get another 3 from just going around the passive tree. You can get +1 on a Shaper Bow. It's pretty simple because it's the only actual uh, thing that matters, the only mod that matters. So you can kind of just like alt spam until you get the +1 frenzy charge on any Shaper Bow. You get +1 from Darkwave Vectors. You get +1 from either Corrupted Gloves or Warlord Gloves. You could even get both of them at the same time, but that's crazy, so I won't plan around that. You get +1 from a Resonating Squeeze of the Desecrated, and you get +1 from the Ascendancy. And that gives you, I believe, like 11 with kind of no investment. Like, I mean, maybe the Shaper Bow is a bit unrealistic for like just starting getting into like maps. So maybe it would be closer to 10, but like 10 Frenzy and Endurance charges is no joke. That's no joke. Now, once you get into like the higher budget, you get +3 from your rings, especially when you have the secret nameless ring slot over here, you know. There we go. Um, you can get +3 frenzy charges, max frenzy charges from there, but it has to be either like a precursor's ring or like one of the synthoplices. So it's gonna be like minimum 50 to like 100 divines. So we'll see if I can even get there because I'm not really a big hideout warrior, nor do I be making that much money in leagues. So I just don't know how realistic that is for me. Um, there's also the +1 from Masterful Form. And there's a +1 from Forbidden Flesh and Flame with Avidity, which just gives you +1 and then like gain a frenzy charge while moving. That tends to be pretty cheap, so I think I could get a hold of this. And then there's the Max Frenzy Charge Tattoo. I have no idea if that's expensive. I was just looking at like kind of the old tattoos they're bringing back, and I saw that you could tattoo over a +30 Dex notable with +1 Max Frenzy charges, which is pretty big. So we can get potentially 17 Frenzy Endurance charges, which is just a massive number and should make our minions both really tanky and also do a ton of damage. To go off of that increased tankiness from the endurance charges, we could also imbue this endurance charge or melee stun support on the raised zombies, and that'll just be like a crazy damage multiplier because it base at level 1 gives 4% more damage per endurance charge. And since we're always going to have those endurance charges, I realized that I actually haven't elaborated on where we're getting these endurance charges from. It really doesn't matter. There's a lot of ways to get endurance charges. There's that one notable from like armor clusters that's just like gain 1 every time you get hit. I think you can get the same thing on like Elegant Hubris Jewels. You can get it from Perfect Warlord. You can get it from that one Searing Exarch implicit that gives you a power, an endurance charge every 10 seconds. There's a lot of ways to get endurance charges. I'm not too worried about that. I'll figure one out. But so basically, there's a lot. You'll be able to get permanent uptime on your minions. Same thing with power charge on critical. It does the exact same thing. And if I can scale a ton of power charges, it'll be worth it. But I'm not entirely sure if they're worth scaling, at least in like the early version of the build, because you get a few of them pretty easily. You get the one from the resonating belt, you get one from your helmet because Devourer of Minds is like not a really used helmet, so it's pretty cheap to get like good corrupts on them. So the +1 power charge corrupt won't be too hard. And then there's the +1 from the Ascendancy, which gives you, 9. But I mean, the base crit on zombies is just so bad. Like it's, that 5% can't really be changed if you're not using like a modest teaching. So it just kind of looks pathetic. I don't know if it's worth super investing into crit until later. Because I mean, then you can get like Grand Spectrums, you can get the crit multi from the tree, you can get Vicious Might from Cluster Jewels, and you can get the Perfect Pain Artist, which gives like +30 crit multi to everyone around him, and then Kingmaker. So I think at that point it might be worth it, but I don't know if it's worth it super early. But it is just interesting that you could scale even extra more damage multipliers off of just giving them charges. I think it's kind of cool. Now moving on to defensive layers. If you know me, you know that I cannot be bothered to play builds that aren't tanky. Like I just can't do it. I'm not very mechanically skilled at the game. I just kind of like AFKing and like eating chips or something behind the screen. So like I like to make my builds decently tanky so I don't just instantly die. So, we got the previously mentioned like Primal Instinct giving 100% chance to suppress, and then Acrobatics giving us 50% spell dodge just out the gate, and then with a little bit more investment to get 50% more spell suppression, then we can get the 75%, which is kind of big. There's a Cat Stealth buff that just gives you a flat, I believe, 15% chance to dodge damage from hits while it's active, which is only active like, a little less than half the time, but still better than nothing. I got my minions taunting enemies, which will mean I'll take 10% less damage from most enemies unless they're untauntable. Uh, Obviously, a big one, huge one even. The fact that I'm stacking endurance charges means that I'll just be tanky because I'm getting additional elemental and physical damage reduction. So flat fizz damage reduction is usually hard to come by on a summoner, and I'll be stacking a ton of that. And then I'll also just be getting elemental damage reduction that'll go on top of my max resistances. And even if I can get like closer to max resistances, like 90, like that's gonna be really huge. Um, there's also good evasion armor scaling. Basically, every unique in the build is an evasion armor base. So I can just build other evasion armor pieces and then use, this one mastery over here for increased evasion armor per frenzy and endurance charge to get a decent amount of that. I won't say a ton because it's not in like 50k, 100k tier, but it'll be a decent amount. Um, And then I use Summon Stone Golem. One, I use a regular Summon Stone Golem because it gives you a little bit more defenses. It's good, life regen. Just all good things. And then Stone Golem Safeguarding gives 15% of melee damage taken for your Stone Golem's life before you, which is scaled by Golem buff effect. So it's really going to end up being after you take the little like Golem wheel and like give it quality and stuff. It's really going to end up being like 30% melee damage is taken from its life before you. So there's a few layers here. I mean, I think the build has the ability to get way tankier, but, like, I think this is a very good starting point for just not getting washed away in, like, T16 maps. Moving on, I've got the auras I'm gonna be running. Uh, Purity of Elements, mandatory. You have to run this if you're playing a minion build or else your minions just blow up and you blow up. It's not worth it. Um, an interesting tech that actually comes from the fact that you're giving your minions so many endurance charges is that it makes it so you can actually run a level 20 or 21 Guardian's Blessing support, which usually like you're never running that even on minion build that runs Guardian's Blessing support because like the amount of fizz damage per second will just like kill the minion unless you're running an insane amount of like health regen or something. But this allows it to because it's going to be, I mean, I think it's like what base 14% at level 21, and it's going to be going down somewhere between like 40 and 60% less. So it's really just going to end up being almost the same as like the 1%, or sorry, the level 1 Guardian's Blessing support. So we could run a free haste and get even increased aura effect on it, which is going to be really nice. Flesh and Stone, really good. Both Flesh and Stone are good on this build. Most builds, I feel like you really just use Stone for the less damage taken, but now you can use Flesh because we're running Fizz zombies anyways, just to get like a ton of bonus damage, and then, Stone whenever you just want to be a little tankier. Skitter bots, because Shock and Chill are awesome, and anything that can allow your zombies to do more damage is really great because zombies don't do any damage. Um, These are the things hold on, whoa, really bad line, I'm sorry, but these are the things that I'm going to be casting myself up until I get access to minions that can cast some of them for me. But it is possible to cast all these things. I believe you just take like every single reservation efficiency node and then like put vitality on arrogance, so it just uses your own max health in order to cast. But later, I'm hoping to replace a few of these with minions, which is why I put the purity of elements here, because eventually, when I get rid of pride and vitality, I was gonna cast one of these, and then probably, yeah, I'll have to cast the cat thing, aspect of the cat, yes, so that I can tattoo over it. So these are also gonna be run, one of them at least, not all of them, obviously. And maybe I can fit in a melding of the flesh and actually get my resistances to 90, 90, 90. We'll see. And while I was mentioning specters, here's the list of specters that I'm gonna try to be using. I actually don't really know what the end all be all cap for specters is. I think realistically, I can afford to have four because, you get the three from level 25 Spectre Gem, and then you get an additional one from Death Attunement. And I think these are like my highest priority ones. I really want the Grace, I really want the Determination and the physical damage reduction. I really want Onslaught and Culling Strike for my minions. And then obviously I don't want to cast Pride, so having a guy cast Pride for me is really awesome. Um, After that, if I'm able to get like a Spectre chess piece or even congregation support, I could probably try and fit in like one or two more Spectres. So I try to do something like a Perfect Warlord, cast Vitality, gives us Endurance Regeneration. It's just like kind of useful, but not mandatory because we can just do these things ourselves. Perfect Dancing Sword is really interesting, giving us chance to impale, and nearby allies have increased impale effect, which actually I think that compared with impale support makes it kind of viable. Also, there's like a specific impale um notable on cluster jewels, I believe, that'll be pretty good with this. I think Dancing Sword is actually kind of high on the mid priority, if this makes any sense. Um Perfect Hydra's cool. Casting Hatred gives us flat not flat. It gives us a percentage of fizz damage as extra cold, which means I'd have to take out brutality. However, it is just good. That's just extra damage. And obviously, even if I go into crit, maybe there's a chance that I can have like freezing zombies. And that's pretty sick. And there's also Perfect Pain Artist. Really, Zealotry doesn't really matter. It's just for the nearby allies have plus 30% crit strike multiplier. That could be big if I go full crit also. And then other things that weren't mentioned, there's that one Demon Harpy that gives like 8% increased fizz damage taken to enemies. That one's pretty good. There's also like a bunch of like weird ones that I like to use if I have the chance. There's like that wildwood bear that gives enemies decreased action speed on hit. That's like crazy. And like the temporal bubble minions. I don't know. Could be fun, but I really don't know how many specters you can get at max. I assume it's something along the lines of like 6, but I have no idea. We will see, and we will see how rich I can get over the league. Anyways, I basically only mentioned low budget. I only really put together a path of building for a low budget, so I just want to talk about directions that a high budget version could go. Um, I haven't planned around it just because I know the league's really short and I don't expect to make tons and tons of money, but I definitely think the strongest this build can be is definitely going Chaos Inoculation and then building into crit. You get Ma's Teaching, you get Malachi's Loop. You can then use a Ralakesh's Impatience that has, count as max power charges. Everyone's seen this combo. So that your minions could count as having a ton of power charges at all times, which means that you can use the aforementioned Grand Spectrums to get plus 90% crit multiplier, and then you could even start getting the I always want to say Brutal Restraint for some reason, but it's not Brutal Restraint because it's Elegant Hubris. The Elegant Hubris notable that says 4% increased energy shield per power charge. Once you have like 10 or 11 power charges, that's like 44 increased energy shield per notable, which is kind of big. So you get a few of those. You get Bone Meld if you can get a ton of resistances. You can get that like giving you up to plus 5% increased defenses per minion you have, and this build is going to have a lot of minions because it's a Zoom answer. So it can get a ton of energy shield, I believe. There's even the on the resonating belt, there's space to put an impenetrable shrine on there as well that will just give like a ton of E shield, and I think that that will be like the tankiest it could be question mark and the strongest. But there's also the angle where you just go like full tank over here, and you go like Widow Hail, rear guard, like get 65 block, and then you use a doppelganger guys to take 40% less fizz and chaos damage. And I think that one could be theoretically the tankiest, but also like the zombies just might be doing such low damage that it's not really worth playing, and you might as well just run heist all day. I really have no idea. But this is just like two directions I might go in. I'm kind of leaning towards cast inoculation just because I really like that node. But we'll just see what makes sense and what ends up, being cheap and possible to build. Anyways, that's really all from me. This is just a big theory craft. I'm gonna league start this. It will probably go really horribly at first, and then I'll thug it out, and then it'll just be like okay by the end of the league probably. But I'll make I want to make at least like daily videos just kind of being like, oh, here's an update, here's what the build's feeling. Should you ever play this? Is it even possible to recreate this in a normal league? Stuff like that. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope that your personal build, whatever you're cooking for Return of the Ancestors, goes well. You have a good one.